Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Racha Abdallah, and I am the Senior Product Consultant at CyberKnight. I would like to thank you all for being part of this workshop on developing an integrated framework for phishing defense. Besides myself, I have with me my colleague Syed Abid, who is the Chief Commercial Officer and co-founder at PhishRod. During this workshop today, we will demonstrate as how can you develop an integrated framework against phishing attacks and cover some of the listed use cases. For example, how can you do a gap analysis against cybersecurity awareness maturity level 5, how to determine end user behavior against phishing attacks, what role analytics can play in develop an enterprise awareness framework, and how can you automate phishing incident response using internal threat intelligence. PhishRod is the fastest growing anti-phishing and security awareness platform in the region. With our head office in United States, we have a regional corporate office in Dubai. PhishRod has over 150 plus enterprise customers across Middle East, with references such as Saudi Airlines, King Faisal Hospital, and Shell Aramco. PhishRod has a holistic approach towards developing an integrated framework for phishing defense, which covers the phishing problem from people, process, and technology perspective. PhishRod suite includes phishing simulator, security awareness manager, policy compliance manager, and automated phishing defense and orchestrated response. PhishRod suite allows you to run phishing simulation campaigns to determine end user behavior, while the security awareness manager module automates the entire security awareness program through built-in SCORM compliant content in Arabic as well as in English. PhishRod provides a reporter plugin for end users to report suspicious emails. Once reported, a security analyst can analyze the reported email through the built-in intelligence engines in PhishRod, such as VirusTotal, PhishTank, and Google Safe Browsing API. Once confirmed as a suspicious email, the email can be deleted from the mailbox for all end users. When we discussing what topic to choose for this workshop, we discussed a lot of ideas and agreed on the topic of developing an integrated framework for phishing defense. The below are a few reasons to cover this topic. Phishing remains the biggest threat to any organization, may it be small or large. On an average, an organization deploys about 15 to 20 different technology-based controls, such as IPS, firewall, email gateway, web gateway, vulnerability scanner, SIM, etc. Despite all these technology controls, a phishing email still managed to enter a mailbox, and just one click could trigger a sophisticated cyber attack. Besides above reasons, we also believe that phishing is not a technology-driven problem. The solution for defense against phishing attacks require effective integration between people, process, and technology. To cover this subject in detail, I would now like to hand over the floor to my colleague, Syed Abid, who will drive this discussion forward.
Thank you very much, Rasha. Highly appreciate your valuable feedback and the introduction. As you've rightly said, I would like to just share with the whole background with the audience that we truly believe that phishing is not only a technology problem. We would need to have people, process, and technology integrated, and hence that is the prime reason for conducting this workshop. So with that perspective, I just want to give you a little bit of a background on what is the scale of phishing, particularly in the region. Now, I'm sure you must be aware of all these stats, already you must be aware. But if you look at the scale, there's a study by Alvidence which shows that a new phishing site is being launched every 20 seconds. I know a lot of people would have been an advocate that, as long as you've got an HTTPS control and all those kind of things, but you still see that 74% of all phishing websites, they actually use the HTTPS control. And by the end of the day, my last argument on the scale of phishing is that, despite the best of the best email gateway solution that you have, we cannot put our hand on the heart and say that no phishing email would ever land into the mailbox. Hence, that phishing remains one of the biggest challenge, and to deal with it, it requires a holistic approach. And that is something that I will cover in the next few slides. Now, what actually means when we say that, we help organizations in developing an integrated framework? This is some of the use cases that I will cover as part of the whole workshop. So when it comes down to people, we believe that people are a core part of this whole phishing defense framework. So for example, what you would need to do in order to develop an integrated framework, you would need to understand what is the end user behavior like, your own organizational threat context. What are the kind of emails people are more prone to click? What are the kind of attachments people are more likely to download? What are the kind of forms people are more likely to enter data on? Based on that, once you know your individual user behavior patterns, the end user behavior patterns, this is where, based on this, you can develop your awareness program. So for example, if you would know upfront that 80% of your staff is vulnerable on social engineering, they fall for it, then this is where the awareness program should focus on. If your 30% of your staff does not know what a phishing email is all about, then probably they are the ones who need to be trained first. So primarily what I'm trying to say here is that you need to determine the end user behavior, identify the most vulnerable users, and based on that, prioritize your awareness program. An awareness program should not only be driven for the sake of awareness, it should be automated too. You should have tools in place that can help you automate the entire program and can provide you KPIs. Why these KPIs are important, that is something that I'm going to cover in the last part of this discussion. And at the same time, you've got a lot of outstanding policies that you build. So how could you make sure that these policies actually reach to the end users, they go through it, they give their compliance, they understand those policies. So that's the discussion that we will have regarding the people part of this framework. Then the process part. From a process point of view, we do understand that, any organization puts in a lot of investment in terms of developing a lot of standards, a lot of policies. But here I'm going to focus a few standards that purely talk about this phishing part, this awareness part. For example, there is an outstanding standard that I would like to recommend all of my audience to go through, which is the SANS Cybersecurity Awareness Maturity Model. And then how you can develop your own security awareness framework. And then should your organization need a cybersecurity awareness and a phishing readiness policy? Once that is all discussed as part of the framework, we will also discuss, and there are some exercises that I will cover, that what you should need to do in order to continuously test that. I know that you have got an IPS in place. I know that you've got an IDS in place. You may be having a wonderful email gateway or a web gateway solution, but they all help you to actually protect the malicious emails coming in. But how about the domain and email spoofing? How vulnerable your domain is, how vulnerable an email address of your employee is that could be used for phishing. Have you ever tested your SPF controls? And similarly, once an email is reported, do you have an automated phishing incident response? And I know that there is a lot of emphasis in the market about gathering, external threat intelligence. So there was a time when we were depending a lot on the SOC, to do the analysis, to gather the events and do the correlation. Then came the next generation, which talks about gathering, threat intelligence feeds from outside. So that is all important. But how about the threat feed that you can get from your internal employees? For example, once an email lands, a phishing email or a suspicious email, once it lands into an end user mailbox, all the threat intelligence and all the controls that you already have, they at this particular time are of no use, because only an end user can play a role. If they have some kind of a mechanism whereby they can report a suspicious email And you have, as administrators or security decision makers in your organization, have the mechanism that you can analyze that reported email. And once you analyze, and then based on this analysis, you can take a preventive action. For example, maybe quarantine that email, or even take that email out from all the end user mailboxes who even have not reported it. So these are all few of these scenarios that I will cover. And there are a few use cases that I will cover as well using the PhishRod application. So I would like you to, give due consideration, so that once we provide you the free licenses, as we have committed as part of this workshop, then you can run some of these drills within your organization to determine the phishing index, the awareness index, the policy compliance index of your organization. So with that background, I'm just going to quickly focus on the process part. Now, when it comes down to developing the process related to, the cultural change or the organizational awareness with respect to phishing, there are 2-3 steps that we would like to recommend based on which you can build your own awareness, your framework. Which one of them is actually the gap analysis against cybersecurity awareness maturity level 5. What does that standard says? That's something that I'm going to cover in my next slide. Another thing that you could do as an activity is to develop a cybersecurity awareness framework, which actually becomes the doctrine for all the awareness activities within your organization. And lastly, do you have a policy for cybersecurity awareness and phishing readiness within your organization? This cybersecurity awareness and phishing readiness, they actually correlate. Because if your awareness program is not contributing towards the phishing readiness and people are still vulnerable to phishing emails, then trust me, the program or whatever awareness program or the tool that you have is not working. Hence, this cybersecurity awareness and phishing readiness are correlated. Now I'm going to quickly cover this standard. So for example, as I was mentioning, there is a standard, a wonderful standard put together by SANS, which talks about defining the maturity level of your organization with respect to cybersecurity awareness. Now, this standard actually has 5 levels: level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and level 5. For example, level 1, you're not awareness within the organization related to phishing, or for the matter of fact, even as a cybersecurity in general as an awareness does not exist. If you are only doing awareness with respect to with a mandate for compliance, that's where you are at level 2, which is compliance focused. And if you are focusing towards promoting awareness and some kind of behavior change, there are different activities that you perform at each level, and you are benchmarked against those activities, then you are actually at level 3. Now, level 4 and obviously level 5 is the robust matrix framework. Now, this standard is a wonderful document that is available. I would highly suggest that you Google the document out or contact us. We can share a copy of the document to you and go through that document. Now, how easy it is to reach at these different levels, I will just quickly cover that on this slide. Now, SANS actually also conducted a survey where they actually conducted survey with 1,300 organizations across different geographical locations, across Americas, Latin America, across Middle East, Africa, Asia. And what they found out that out of those 1,300 organizations that they surveyed, 7.6% were non-existent. They were not focusing any kind of activities related to awareness. 27% of them were actually compliance focused. This is where mostly banks and the regulator, this is where mostly banks lie, where the regulator actually pushes them for a lot of awareness content. 54%, the highest ratio was actually on that level 3. Only 9.8% of the organizations were assessed at level 4. But have a look at level 5, where there was only 0.85% of the organization stand. Why? Because at level 5, all the activities that you do within that organization have to be KPI driven. There has to be analytics for every activity that you do regarding phishing readiness, regarding security awareness, regarding policy compliance. So this is where, because analytics are very, very quantified, this is where, a lot of these implementations do not reach to level 5 because it requires analytics. I'm going to cover it in my next slide as to what analytics are required to actually be at level 5. But then once you have that gap analysis done, I mean, we as PhishRod can also help you complementary do that gap analysis against that maturity level 5. But once you have that assessment done, the next step is actually to develop an enterprise security awareness framework, which actually speaks of developing your own security awareness and phishing readiness policy. which defines the delivery channels. For example, across what channels are you going to spread this awareness regarding cybersecurity? Do you have an information security awareness organization within your organization? What kind of a content are you going to push? I mean, that content, particularly the content that relates, that is being used within our region, the Middle East and North Africa region, that has to be very customized, because at a lot of time the content has a lot of sensitivities in terms of the content that you're providing should relate to your organization. So then the development of the content, particularly also then talking about the key performance indicators, that what are the kind of KPIs you should have, for example, phishing index, for example, awareness index, for example, most vulnerable employees, for example, identifying who are the most vulnerable departments, and all these analytics should be monitored and evaluated. Now, when you talk of these analytics, these are a few of the KPIs that are required. For example, an organization must know their phishing index. Phishing index is most likely, a vulnerability index about the end user behavior. So you should know that your organization is vulnerable in terms of end user behavior as to what level. For example, organizational phishing index, department-wide phishing index, most vulnerable, end users. Similarly, when you are creating an awareness program, you should know that where does the organization awareness index stands? How about the departmental, awareness index? Who are the most aware users who are actually taking part in awareness programs? And similarly, who are the people who are taking most part in the organizational policy compliance? Luckily, in PhishRod, we have this entire thing covered, because all these, PhishRod entire application is designed to help organizations reach maturity level 5. So once you have all that covered and those processes are in place, the next step, which I would like to focus now, is to do some kind of drills. For example, the first one is the domain and email spoofing. And to determine how good your SPF controls are, I wished it would have been an interactive session where I could ask the audience to actually provide me their email address or their domain name, so that we could live run domain spoofing and an SPF control test. But here I would like to do some of these tests. For example, this is how you could determine the end user behavior within your organization. Now I'll quickly take you into the PhishRod application, where we could run a few scenarios. For example, once you have the PhishRod application, even as a demo that you would like, or we would create a login for you. So you would log into the application. Just while I'm logging in, PhishRod is an application that is available on premise as well as on cloud. So right now I'm running the cloud instance. So just to make you familiarize with the environment so that you can run these tests within your organization, we can quickly go to the user management part. So once you have your user management done, all you would need to do is to create an organization and import the users. As PhishRod, we integrate with AD at the same time. You can export import the user list based on a CSV or an Excel file. Once you create an organization, or we help you create an organization, this is just a one-time activity that you would need to do, where you can define an organization, which I've already done. It's just like a test organization, the name of the CISO or the approver, and his email address, because in PhishRod you cannot run any awareness or a phishing campaign until or unless this has been approved by an administrator. So there is a check and balance. So this email address, I've put mine for the time being. What are the email address and the name that you would like to use when it comes down to sending the awareness content? Similarly, the reminder configurations, the policy compliance configurations, and the phishing defense center. Now, this is where you put in define your primary analyst and your secondary analyst. For example, once an end user reports a suspicious email, who would be the first person to be notified? It could be a SOC email address, it could be an individual user email address. So this is where the primary incident analyst would go, and the secondary incident analyst could also come in here. Which are the engines that you would like to use? Now, within PhishRod, we have built-in integration with PhishTank, with VirusTotal, with also VoIP IP API as well, that can help you determine the reputation of an email address or an IP or a DNS lookup. So you can do that, and all those things could be done to actually help you configure that. So all these things are available here, and then at the same time you could have the advisories should you like to send an advisories to. So once that configuration is done, that is something that we will update and configure that out. So that email account is that account is created. uh, as part of the next step, as I said, the first step that we will do is in terms of a technology readiness is to determine the end user behavior. Now in PhishRod we have this phishing simulator module that can help you determine the end user behavior. For example, if you can see that there are multiple, about 1000 plus phishing templates that we have in English as well as in Arabic. You can use any one of those templates, and create a new template, or you can edit any existing template that you would like. For example, this is a template that we have in place, or you can simply just go and create a new template that you would like, and or you could import them. For example, we as PhishRod keep on identifying new templates. You can just import them and in my templates library, so they will be available to you. For example, this one, email quota template, I'm just going to find one, and let's see if I can convert this for you. For example, let's say this is a template. All you just need to do is just customize this template based on your requirement, and that's it. So for example, if this is a simple test that prompts the users to click on a link where you are asking them that your email are on hold, and you can just click on the link to gain access. For example, myorganization.com/email access. That's it. So you can just create a fake backlink, which would actually take the users to a landing page, which you can define and customize based on your liking. That's all. So once that template is ready, what you're essentially doing is asking the end users to click on that link that will take them to a landing page, which will just give them the awareness that this was a phishing test or an end user behavior test, and you have clicked on the link. Now, once that has been created, all that is required is to send that email out to all the end users. Now, if you go into the create phishing campaign option, this is where you can run your first end user behavior test. You can go and create a new test. I'll just call this as MENA ISC workshop campaign, and the sender name. Now this is where you could even determine your domain or your SPF control test. For example, you can put in your name or your email address. May it be any name, any organization name that you could add to see if I'm able to land a fake phishing email from your domain. Let me just put any email address. Let's say, for example, this could be any fake email that you could put in there and see if that email actually lands in. So what I'm trying to actually say here is that if you can use this tool and you put your email address and see if you've been able to receive that email, or you've been able to put any other's email address in this and still be able to receive the email. So that would actually determine how effectively your email security controls are working. That are they stopping all the phishing emails to land or anonymous emails to land, or how secure your domain name is that your email address cannot be used by anyone else. So all you just need to do is then select the users from that organization, and then select the departments that you have, and then ultimately select the template that you have. So once you have that template done, and once you have the template ready, we can just select that template that we created. So this is the template that I created. Landing pages you can develop on your own, and you could also select a video for awareness that can be instantly provided to the end users. So once that campaign is ready, all you got to do is request for an approval. Now, once a request for approval goes out, all you need to do is just request the CISO or your team lead to approve. Once you request for an approval here, the CISO or the head of the organization in terms of security would receive an email that your team is trying to run a phishing campaign or an end user behavior assessment campaign. Do you want to approve it? Now, I'll just wait for a little bit while this email I receive, because without approval, this email campaign would not work, if you see here. So all I just got to do is just wait and let my mailbox sync and see if I can, if I've received that email. Once that email I have, then I will be able to run that and execute that campaign. Okay. Just a second with me so that I can sync my mail. While this email is actually syncing in, what you could do is that I could quickly show you that how the end users would receive that email. So for example, if I go here in the demo, this is how actually the end users would receive that suspicious email. Or just a second, if I can just let my mailbox sync. Okay, here we go. I think I have, yeah, that's the one. So now this is an email that the CISO or the approver would get. He would have all the details that this is how the email is coming out, and should I approve? The moment he approves this campaign and I refresh here, I would be allowed to execute the campaign. So here you go. Now, the moment this campaign executes, all your organization should receive your end user behavior assessment email or the simulated phishing email. Once that email actually lands, it actually does 2 or 3 purposes. One, that first, if your end users have been able to receive that email, it proves that your email security configurations needs to be tightened, because not all the emails or not the emails with anonymous domains should enter your organization. So it gives you an opportunity that your email security control should be configured well. Second, if you can use your email address and you have been able to send an email to yourself, for example, if then it actually means that the SPF controls should also be configured well. And once the email actually lands into the mailbox, the next important thing is that how the end users behave with that email. Do they report or do they just leave it there? For example, this is how the email actually would land in, and if you can see, the link is taking them to PhishRod, but if the end users still continue to click on it, it actually shows them that there is vulnerable end user behavior is determined. So you can the people would be taken to a landing page. This can be customized, and then a video would appear. In the essence of time, what I would want to show more is that how on the dashboard you can measure that who are the most vulnerable users. So if you see here on that phishing simulator analytics, you would continue to see the progress of all the end users behavior. So if you see here, for example, if you could continue, if you want, if let's say after a year or so, the management asks that how many fish, what is your progress on the end user behavior front, then you can just pull up the time and date, between this time to this date. From, let's say, I'll just pick up 1 year, and within that 1 year, within this last 2 years, how far we have come across in terms of the phishing readiness. So the system automatically pulls up all those nice dashboards that in 3 years or 2 years time frame, we have run about like 53 campaigns, 2 attachment based, 44 click only, 7 data entry templates, and based on that, our phishing index is, organization phishing index is 5.68, which is considerably acceptable. But had it been like in 70s, 60s, or 50s, then it means that if had it been 50% phishing index, that actually means that if 100 phishing emails were to land into the end user mailboxes, then 50% of the end users would eventually go on to click it. Then if you want to see who are the most vulnerable end users, the system could pull up the result of those who are most vulnerable, how many times they got phished. And if you want to have a look at the individual user report based on their progress report card, so you could also have a look that, for example, my colleague Zishan, how many phishing emails were sent to him, what was the response against every phishing campaign, and what is the phishing index that he individually has. Similarly, what are the modules in terms of awareness that were assigned to him, and based on this, what is his awareness index. And then at the same time, how many policies were assigned to him, and what is his compliance index. Now all these analytics that you see, the phishing index, the policy, the compliance index, the awareness index, the number of emails being reported by them, the number of emails which were external but got reported by the Zishan, all this actually contributes as a key performance indicator, and they go into those nice dashboards which actually help the organizations to reach at maturity level 5 of the SANS cybersecurity awareness, maturity model. So with this kind of a background, I think what I'm just trying to sum up is that with the tool, you could use it to determine the end user behavior, to determine the SPF controls, to determine if your email is and your domain is secure or not. Now, with that, the next part of the discussion becomes that, fine, we have given the awareness to the end users. Just to give you a background, but before I go into the automated phishing defense part, in PhishRod, we have this whole automated, program management for security awareness. So once you know that 80% of your procurement or 75% of your sales or 80% as an organization, they do not have the understanding on mobile, on insider threats, and all those contexts in which you would like to aware them. In PhishRod, we have this whole application module called Awareness Manager, which contains about 40 plus different modules in English as well as in Arabic. They're all SCORM compliant. They follow a quiz at the end. And once the end user pass it, they can be assigned a module. So what we do is essentially we automate the entire awareness program, just like the way you assign a phishing campaign, an end user behavior test. Exactly the same way we could, create that awareness campaign. So, so for example, you can select the campaign name. I'll just do that just for the sake of, IT security. Mina IC. IT security awareness. PhishRod.co. You select your organization. From here, you just pick up the end users. I will just select only one department for the time being, because they were the ones that turned out to be the most vulnerable as part of the phishing readiness or awareness campaign. And then once you've selected the users, you can just select the module. For example, phishing, in Arabic, this module that you would like to assign to the end users, the date that you would like to, request them to complete the module. So once you select that, you could give them, like say, 2 weeks time to finish that. Once they finish, do you want to allow them to give any feedback? So once that campaign is done, the module will be stacked into the queue. And if you see that there's another request for approval. So until or unless, once you request for an approval, the administrator would approve it. And this is how exactly the end user would receive that, email for awareness. So if you see here, this is the module, for example. This whole content can be customized in both English as well as in Arabic. And once the end user clicks it, I'm just going to sign out from here because, because I'm just logging in now as an end user. So once an end user actually clicks on this link, they will be taken to their dashboard for awareness, where they will have all the progress in terms of KPIs, and the module would load. So this is the end user interface that you would see. The module would load up. It would have, some content to run, some scenarios, and at the end there will be a quiz. Once the end user passes that quiz, they will be issued a certificate that they're passed this module. So what you can do is, based on this, you can gather a lot of data and make definitive KPIs. So for example, this is how the module actually loads. And if the end user actually tries to cancel that they do not want to attend the module, they will be shown non-compliant.
تعمل سارة في مؤسسة مالية. في أحد الأيام تلقت سارة بريداً إلكترونياً من البنك.
So I'm just canceling in the essence of time. Just want to show you that what kind of analytics do you get at the end user level too. So this is how actually, I can maybe do that later. So if you look at the end user dashboard, they actually get to see that what are the kind of modules that were assigned to them and what is their progress. For example, right now, 13 modules have been assigned. None of them has been passed by me, and 2 of them have not even started. 13 of them I started. None of them have been completed, so no certificate is issued. On the compliance front, I have made some progress because I'm compliant on the 7 policies. 5 of them I'm non-compliant. My compliance index is 58.33, whereas my awareness index is 0. So you can pick up any policy that you would like to go through. For example, let's say this is the one policy that I would like to comply to. So it's the same exactly. So the policy would load up in a container. It is a document, it's a PDF document, and you get to define the passing criteria, the quiz, and the questions on it. So these questions, the policy loads up. If the user is smart and he says, I just want to go, I don't want to go through the document, just click proceed, the system would not let them. So what the system actually enforces is the points, the learning points that you want to invoke at the time of creating the policy. So it could be minimum 3, maximum as many of them. And then in the end, there is a quiz that the end user must go through. And if he does not pass the qualification criteria or the pass criteria that you defined, they would still be shown non-compliant. So what the system actually is doing here, it's keeping a track of all the KPIs, which is required to be at the SANS maturity level 5. Now, with that kind of background, I've covered a lot of use cases that relates to technology, the people, and the process part. Now I want to lastly, in the next 10 minutes only, I want to cover this whole part of automated phishing defense. So far, what I have covered is that you can determine an end user behavior, give them awareness, automate the entire awareness program. You make use of the good awareness content that we have in PhishRod. But how about those emails that have already landed into the mailbox? All the scenarios that I've covered, they do not proactively engage the end users in terms of stopping or contributing to those threats. Like, as I said, once a phishing email lands into the mailbox, it's a one-to-one encounter between if an end user clicks a link, this is where a cyber attack could be instigated. So what needs to be there is that there should be a mechanism whereby an end user is aware enough that he could report a suspicious email. Now, and for that, we have to cover that automated phishing defense and incident response scenario. We provide, as PhishRod, we provide the end users with an Outlook plugin. For example, if you see here, there is an Outlook plugin which we can provide, which can be in Arabic as well as in English, can be customized. So if an end user sees that this is a suspicious email, he just can report that suspicious email, and that email would be marked immediately into the PhishRod portal, and the administrator, the primary analyst, would be notified. For example, I, as an end user, I'm reporting the suspicious email. There appears to be a suspicious link in the email. That's it. I'm just sending this information, reporting that mail out. So once that email actually gets reported, the system says that this is a mock phishing test, we have reported it well. That mail actually would be taken out from my end user mailbox. So that email, So the moment this email gets reported, I would automatically be informed as a primary analyst. For example, here, once I report that suspicious email, I will now log into the application again and take you quickly through to the application workflow. So once the end user reports a suspicious email, the primary analyst would be informed that one of the user has reported a suspicious email, which requires your immediate attention. And that will be available here in the Phishing Defense Center. So if you go here in the reported incidents, that email would automatically be marked. Now, the one that I reported was actually a phishing simulation email. So the end user is being informed that you've done well, you've spotted that email. But had it been a non-suspicious email, then that would be actually marked here in, and this is pending. All these emails are actually pending action for the primary analyst. Now, for example, if the primary analyst wants to see that, what is this incident that the end user has created? Now, this is all automated. The moment the end user reports an email, an incident number is created, which is tracked until it reaches a meaningful conclusion. So the primary analyst can see that how many users have reported that email and who was the reporter, the person who actually reported that email, what does the email header actually contains, what does the body of the email contains, what else, so all those kind of things that the primary analyst would need for the further analysis to take this incident to a meaningful conclusion. So now, once the primary analyst receives it, he can immediately do the investigation. Now, for that investigation part, we at PhishRod, we have built-in integrations with VirusTotal, with Google Safe Browsing API, with the Fish Tank, to determine the malicious links, the malicious IPs, the malicious domain, or even the repetition of the email. All these things can be investigated. For example, I just want to investigate the email source. Sorry, my bad, this does not contain any link. Okay, let me just quickly analyze this email, if it has any. Okay, so if you see here, what the system does, it actually extracts all the URLs and through Fish Tank and Google Safe Browsing API, the primary analyst is able to see that all the links are safe, and there is nothing suspicious in it. But what if this email was actually a suspicious one? Then the primary analyst could put his comments and forward the case to the SOC or the secondary analyst, saying that, two of the links in the email were actually reported suspicious by Fish Tank and VirusTotal. So what he's doing, he's just passing on his preliminary investigation to the SOC or the secondary analyst who has more meaningful information available. So now, once that incident has been triggered, the immediate action that could be taken is to actually mark it quarantine. That because only one person has reported that suspicious email, it may still be in the mailbox of about 1,000, 2,000, doesn't matter how many users you have. So if that email is already lying into their mailbox, it's like a ticking time bomb while the investigation is going on. So the first step that the primary analyst could do, that while he has passed this incident to the secondary analyst for his input or for the remediation, he could immediately just press this button and mark this email as quarantine. So what the reporter plugin would do, it would eventually go and look into this through the reporter plugin. This mail would be searched in all end user mailboxes and would be put into a hidden folder till the secondary analyst confirms that yes, it is a suspicious email. So now the secondary analyst would be informed, and in this orchestrated response section, the secondary analyst would only see the emails that have been escalated by the primary analyst. So what we are doing is actually zooming in and narrowing down. So now once the secondary analyst sees, he sees the analysis by the primary analyst as well. For example, if he just wants to see that, oh, okay, this email got reported at this time, the primary analyst marked it suspicious based on what evidence. So he can have a look at the evidence that he investigated with Fish Tank, with Google Safe Browsing API, with Cuckoos for attachments, and based on this, he's saying that yes, it is a suspicious email. He quarantined it, so while the quarantine is happening, how many users have it been quarantined so far? Then it came to me at, this particular time. Now, what he could do immediately, that based on the other tools, based on the other, external threat intelligence engines that he has, he can first acknowledge that email and then at the same time, mark it suspicious or mark it to be deleted. So for example, if the end user marks it as the email which contains some suspicious link, then he would inform. So automatically the primary analyst would be informed that the email has been marked as suspicious. So you can take an evasive action. So immediately the mark as delete option would be enabled and the primary analyst would be able to delete that email from all the end user mailboxes. So what it does actually, it does a lot of things. One is that it helps you create your complete database of your internal of your threat intelligence that is gathered through internal sources. So for all the emails that have been reported by the end users, it is a complete source or a wonderful source of the threat intelligence that has been gathered through multiple internal resources. Now, contrary to that, had your email gateway or had all the other external threat intelligence engines had been working brilliantly fine or can guarantee you 100% secure environment, then these mails should have not even landed. So what we are actually doing here is that you are building your own internal threat intelligence database based on which you can fine tune your controls so that these emails should not land into your mailbox, and you could fine tune those. So, and then at the same time, immediately based on an incident being reported by one user, you have defined a complete mechanism to actually delete the suspicious emails from all end user mailboxes. And all these analytics could help you to actually take evasive action. For example, on this analytics related to phishing defense, you could see that how many emails were actually reported by the end users and how many percentage of them did actually turn out to be suspicious. For example, during this time to this time, how many emails were actually reported. This is a list of all the emails that were actually reported by the end users. And out of this, these are the emails that actually turned out to be suspicious. So, and this can be passed, this intelligence could be passed on to your email exchange administrators, to your SOC administrators, to your web gateway administrators, that this is from where the malicious traffic is getting into our organization. Who are the people who are actually reporting a lot of emails, that are taking part in the program and are being the most aware and empowered users. Based on this, you have released any advisories or not. So I think in a nutshell, what we are trying to cover here is that as long as you have this program in place, an integrated framework actually requires that you have a holistic approach towards not only determining the end user behavior, but also be able to have a mechanism that an automated phishing incident response could be formed that can instantly take actions, not only rely on intelligence, but can also take quick action for remediation, not only to remediate specific actions such as deleting emails, but can also gather this intelligence and pass it on to the relevant teams. So if you have all that in place, then a lot of good work can be done in terms of developing the whole aware framework. Now, just lastly, in terms of takeaways, because I know we have a fixed allocated time. So for all those participants who have been here as part of the workshop, please do drop their their email addresses. I know that we would also get this from the organizers, but you can contact us. My email address is abid@phishrod.co. And we can put it in there as well. At the time of registration, you would find our email address there. So you can contact us. We will share your certificate of participation with you. And at the same time, we will also share with you a template for how can you create your own security awareness framework. That this is where we can help you complimentary, free of charge. And we will also be able to give you a 200 user free PhishRod license, where you can run all the scenarios, create your awareness program. And as PhishRod, we can always contribute in terms of helping you not only to develop the whole framework, but in terms of developing a lot of customized content. Should you want to request us, this is all complimentary. So with that, I think the key takeaway to that integrated framework is, and I would like to reiterate, that phishing is just not only a technology problem. There has to be a lot of processes in place. End user behavior must be gauged, at every level, at the organization, at the department, at the individual user behavior level. The KPIs must be defined, and those KPIs must be defined as part of the framework so that you can continue to measure the progress. A lot of time, these phishing readiness and awareness programs fail because the administrators or the security teams are not able to show the return on investment to the management, that this is where we were, and after the awareness of the phishing readiness program, this is where we have reached. And lastly, as I said, that this mechanism of actually empowering the end users to report suspicious emails and be able to build your own internal threat intelligence mechanism, that is the primitive for making bringing people, process, and technology on one platform. With that, I would like to say thank you to all of you who have been very patient. I'm available. My colleague Rasha also is available for any questions that you would like to have, and you can put them on the chat window, and we remain available to address any questions that you would like to have. So thank you very much, team. Thank you very much all. Rasha, if you would like to conclude, pass on any comments, and then we say bye to the rest of the audience here.
Thank you so much, team, and we would like always to support your comment and questions whenever you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rasha. Appreciate it. Thank you.